It's the sport that's caught America's imagination. With Greg LeMond, twice victorious in the Tour de France, and the national team winning medals at the Los Angeles and Seoul Olympics, cycling in the States is on the up and up. Now we bring you a 7-city track series from velodromes around the nation with the Sundance Grand Prix of cycling. The series continues next on Screen Sport.
Welcome to the 7-Eleven Velodrome on the campus of Cal State Dominguez Hills for the Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix of Cycling, Los Angeles. Hi everyone, I'm Brian Drever, and this is the second event in a 7-race series for 1989. And working with me for all 7 races, 8-time U.S. national team member, 1986 pro champion Thomas Prent. Thomas, last week in Houston, we had an international flavor to this event. This week, a little more of a domestic scene, but great racing nevertheless.
That's right. Before, we had the American riders really dominating the competition. They beat the Soviets, and that was really impressive because the Soviet team is very strong, always very strong. Now we're here in Los Angeles on the Olympic Velodrome. That's going to inspire some American riders and some good American performance. Mostly American riders here at this event, but the thing that we're going to be watching is last week it was Team Lycra dominating the competition, and now we have the American riders. The other American riders definitely want to win some events, and so we should have some good competition here.
Some of the events that we're going to be following include the women's match sprint, in which Connie Young and Renee Duprel, adversaries in the Olympic trials, meet again.
Right, these two riders advanced very easily in the semifinals, and so they're going to be really fresh to ride this event.
And on the men's side, Kurt Harnett of Canada and Ken Carpenter, the U.S. Olympic representative. No love lost and no punches pulled between these two.
That's right. Kurt hasn't won an event here at the Sundance races, and he really wants to. He had some bad luck in Houston. He's really out for the victory this time.
More Olympic-style competition in the men's pursuit and an international flavor with Sean Wallace of Great Britain and Dan Frost of Denmark. They will match in the pursuit. Some of the other races that we'll be seeing include the men's Missing Out. Perhaps you haven't seen that before. And the men's Kieran Final. That's going to be an exciting, very fast-paced action. And so stay with us. A lot coming up in the 1989 Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix. Don't go away. We're at the 7-Eleven Olympic Velodrome on the campus of Cal State Dominguez Hills in Carson, California. 333.3 meters for one lap, and the maximum banking 33 degrees, a facility that was used for the Olympic Games, and it's also used for a number of recreational cycling programs here in California, many of which are run by the university. Our first sprint of the day matches Connie Young and Renee Duprel. Connie Young of Team Lycra, Renee Duprel of Weight Watchers. These two met in the Olympic trials last year, Connie Young getting the best of it. They have met a number of times in the match sprint. It's a 3-lap race, and the riders draw for their position. Number 1 starts at the bottom of the track, leads the first lap at a walking pace. 200-meter times are posted, and we'll be seeing them, but they're primarily for comparison purposes. The important thing is the first rider across the line wins, and it's a best-of-3 series. You win twice, you get a gold medal, Thomas Pren. And down on the inside, it's Renee Duprel on the right. She's drawn the number 1 position. Connie Young at the top of the track can follow her around for 1 lap or take the lead anytime she wants. They're getting ready to start in this first ride. Best-of-3 series. Renee Duprel goes off to the lead.
I think Renee Duprel certainly has her hands full with trying to beat Connie Young. Connie is certainly the elder statesperson of Americans, female sprinters. She has numerous world champions and championships and national championships. She's an excellent tactician, very strong, and being her second event here, she started to get a little bit of track racing in her legs, and she'll probably be we'll be seeing a little bit more speed in her.
Connie Young is really sort of the elder statesman, or stateswoman, if you will, of match sprinting here in the United States. Her experience goes back all the way to the early 80s with world championship titles, and she really says that cycling is coming of age.
I think we have the same players in the game, but everybody has grown up and changed a little bit. Everybody is trying new things, and you know, even though I think it's the same people out there riding, I think we're going to see different riders.
A different ride may be what Renee Duprel is looking for. Connie Young, the superior tactician and the world record holder for 200 meters. Her history is that she's got the speed and the tactics to go along with it.
That's right. But Renee is also a real up-and-coming rider. She's doing really well. They both advanced through their qualifying heats in 2 straight. So they should be pretty fresh for this event. We should have some good racing out here.
Riders are seeded in the match sprint by a 200-meter time trial, and the fastest rider goes against the slowest rider in the early rounds, and it should end up the way it has ended up here, that the best 2 riders face each other in the gold medal final. Renee Duprel in pink at the front. Connie Young, 3-time world champion, Olympic bronze medalist from 1988. Second position. They're coming around with 1 lap to go. The low-speed riding and the psyching out that's going on right now will come to an end. Connie Young dancing on the pedals, trying to force Renee Duprel up to speed early in this race.
That's right, and Renee is just looking over her shoulder, keeping an eye on Connie. And Connie, every once in a while, makes a couple moves, and that's just a tactical ploy to try and get her going a little early, and they're into it now.
The 200-meter time tape has been started. That's the time in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Renee Duprel in full stride. Connie Young timing a perfect move, draws even in the straightaway, and takes it by a half a bike length. 12:82, not a fast time, but again, it only counts to get to the line first. Connie Young of the Sundance Juice Sparkler team winning the first ride. Let's take another look at it.
What you saw there at the beginning of this was Connie making a couple of moves just to get Renee to start her sprint early, and it worked just perfectly because as they're coming off the final stretch, or they're going into the final stretch, she's accelerating past her, and she has her right there by about half a bike length.
So Connie Young, a perfectly timed move right out of the textbook, and she helped write it. Wins the first ride, goes up 1-0 in the women's match sprint final. And now we're getting ready for the men's match sprint final between Kurt Harnett of Canada, Ken Carpenter of the United States. These two have met many times in the past, and most recently in Houston, Texas in the semifinal round, and it spelled disaster for Kurt Harnett.
Kurt Harnett is on the inside here, and what he tried to do is he wanted to skip his rear wheel just to do a little scare tactic, and what happened is right there, he lost control of the bike. His foot popped out of the pedal system that he was in, and incredible that he stayed up on his bike, superior bike handling, but it's like a binding system, and now he's gone back to the regular standard pedals and clips that you see right there. It looks rather primitive, Brian, but it holds him in.
Whatever works. Kurt Harnett lost that semifinal round and was unable to go for the gold medal last week, but here both he and Ken Carpenter meet in the final. Ken Carpenter winning the gold medal in Houston, and now he faces a formidable opponent. Ken Carpenter on the right, Kurt Harnett at the top of the track. Ken Carpenter, the U.S. representative in the Olympic Games. Kurt Harnett, the Canadian representative in the Olympic Games. They met in the first round at the Olympics in a repechage, a second chance race, because both of them had lost their first round ride. And then only one was able to advance, and the one was Kurt Harnett, winning by an inch over Ken Carpenter. One of the more enduring images from the Olympic Games was Ken Carpenter's remorse and sadness, and whatever you want to call it, at having been eliminated early on.
Well, I talked with Ken Carpenter earlier today, and he says that he really wants to do something this event. He doesn't want to ride another race against the Canadian. He wants to do something different. So we could see some different tactics from here, and this is good for him to do something different. Maybe some different tactics that hasn't been seen. An early break, who knows? Well,
Ken Carpenter had been critical of himself tactically and felt like in Houston he had ridden just about as perfect as he could ride in order to defeat Nikolai Kovch from the Soviet Union, who was an Olympic silver medalist. And here he finds himself in a gold medal final in the Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix men's match sprint against, I think, his most formidable opponent. Kurt Harnett really has Ken Carpenter's number, at least in the past.
Right. Now, Kurt definitely wants to win this event. After last week in Houston, it was an embarrassment to him, really, and he just can't afford to do that. He's not used to racing for anything less than the gold medal.
Now, Ken Carpenter's really taking him for a little bit of a scenic ride here, all the way to the infield, then back up to the top of the track. 1 lap has passed, and Ken Carpenter gets ready to put it in park, trying to force Harnett to the front. Ken Carpenter balancing on the track, hopping his back wheel up the track to achieve that. And now look at this, Harnett takes a flyer on him. He caught Ken Carpenter in a momentary lull, but he gives it up. Carpenter is able to close the gap. Kurt Harnett had a big gap there, but with 2 full laps to go, I don't think he wanted to go that far.
No, I don't think he wanted to go that far. It wasn't quite a surprise enough move for him. But, you know, Kurt has been talking about doing some different tactics, too. And so they're starting to wind it up, and they still have a little over a lap to go. And they're winding up early, and they both like to ride that way, too.
That's right. Harnett controlling the pace of the race in the front. He's up to speed pretty early. Ken Carpenter still in the saddle. Now he also stands up and begins that acceleration as they go around to the backstretch. They're in the final lap of the race. Harnett with a good lead down the backstretch. Ken Carpenter's really going to have to take a run at him into the turn, and he's doing it. He's running into the slipstream, accelerating in the draft, tries to draw even down the home stretch, but can't do it. He let a little too much room go by. And Kurt Harnett of Canada takes the first ride here, and Ken Carpenter is going to have to fight back from a 1-0 deficit.
I think what Kurt Harnett did there was that he accelerated early. He accelerated early and had this tremendous gap going into the third corner. Well, Ken Carpenter is trying very desperately to make it up and get into that slipstream, but it was just a little bit too late. He just did not have enough speed early enough into it. He's coming out of the final corner into the slipstream, coming off of it, but it's just not enough and not soon enough.
So Kurt Harnett doesn't stand still to provide a target for Ken Carpenter, and Carpenter misses the moving target, timing a move too late. Earlier today in the Sundance Grand Prix of Cycling, the men's Missin' Out Final, a very unusual event that is held on the track. The last rider on each lap is eliminated from this huge field of riders. It starts out, they go down to 3, one at a time. They pick them off the back. Then there's a neutral lap, the bell rings, and the 3 remaining riders sprint for the top spots. We've got a new wrinkle in this one. We've introduced a point-of-view camera that's worn on the helmet of Nelson Vales, 1984 Olympic silver medalist in the match sprint, and he's going to be inside the race, giving us an eagle's eye view of what it's like to ride a Missin' Out, Thomas.
This is going to be very interesting because you have a lot of riders out there. There's a lot of traffic, and they're all going to be fighting to stay at the front so that they don't get eliminated as you go around each lap. That field is a big field, and the riders are all, it's going to be a lot of traffic out there.
A lot of traffic indeed. Early in the race, the riders will try to stay up front to stay out of trouble, and then late in the race, maybe we'll see someone playing the devil. This race is also known as Devil Take the Hindmost.
Now, actually,
getting together for the start. Excuse me, Thomas. The gun is up, and they're underway. This was the men's Missin' Out Final. We're down to a dozen or so riders in this race of attrition, this elimination race. And at the back of the field there is our cameraman, Nelson Vales, in that bright day-glow jersey. And one rider at a time is eliminated from this race. This lap coming out was Albert Hale from Escondido, California, Team Montgomery. He's drifting off the back, and the field coming around. One more rider to come out this time.
The pace has really picked up here, Brian. It looks like they're just really trying to force it and keep it strung out. We're not getting quite the sprint at the finish the way how we would normally expect in something like this.
Bob Rosenberg from Holland just came out of there, rides for the Montrose Cycling Club here in California, but is originally from Holland. One rider is eliminated each lap, and it really starts to get tough out there. It's kind of like interval training. They go slow, they go fast, and you can't be down near the bottom. They got to sling around the outside. Let's see who's eliminated this time.
You can see it. Matt Chambers is eliminated this time. You can see it every single time as they come out onto the final straightaway. The riders in the back swing up the track and try and get through, stay out of traffic, and cross that finish line. Just as long as they have one person behind them, they're okay.
8 riders left on the track. And the best place to be at this time, Thomas, where is that right now?
Well, the best place to be is really right at the front. But actually, we're getting to a point now where there are so few riders that you can stay at the back and come around right at the very finish. Here we have a great shot from Nelson Vales. He's this is what it looks like from behind, coming around into the finishing stretch, and you'll see those riders spread out across the track and try and sneak their front wheel right in, right like that.
I think it was the rider right in front of Nelson that time. And it's Mario Pons from Ecuador who lives here in Southern California. Mario Ponce, 21 years old. He's eliminated from the missing out final. We're down to 6 riders now.
Yeah, this is now we're going to see riders ride a lot more tactically. Now, riders sitting at the front like that can really they can tire themselves out a little bit too much. So you have to ride very tactical, ride very smart.
And Ken Frost that time from Copenhagen, Denmark, drifted out of the back of the field. Apparently, he's run out of gas here. 38 riders started this race, I believe, something along that line. So it really is kind of an endurance test after a while. We're down to 5, one more coming out. This will be our 5th place finisher, if you want to look at it that way.
Whoa, and that was a close one right there. Looks like Sean Wallace is riding a really good race. He's got to be a little bit tired because he's been doing a lot of other races here today.
Neil Fraser from Los Angeles was the rider eliminated, and now we're down to 4. Sean Wallace is sitting in 2nd position right now. Also in the field is Manuel Yoshimatsu from Mexico, won a bronze medal in the points race in the 1984 Olympic Games. It's Yoshimatsu sprinting around the outside on the right of the screen. And in the back there, number 57, Glenn McClay, Burbank, down on the inside, got squeezed back, and he's eliminated.
Okay, now they have one lap that they can recover, rest, and then they've got the final sprint. Now also, Brian, in a situation like this, it's not unusual to have some rider who's a little bit fresher just make an attack, just try and catch everyone off guard and go one whole lap by themselves to the finish.
That's Yoshimatsu directly in front of the camera. Up front is Sean Wallace in the orange and blue jersey of the Weedy Schwinn team.
Whoa, Yoshimatsu going on the inside of the track. Now they're getting into the sprint. Sean Wallace at the front.
And Dan Frost is the man right in front of the camera right now. Dan Frost sitting in 3rd spot. He drifts out. He's not going to contest the sprint. And coming down the straightaway, it is Sean Wallace and Manuel Yoshimatsu. Wallace virtually alone without the benefit of a lot of teammates in there. His only teammate, Army Armstrong, was eliminated early, and Wallace holds off the charge of the Olympic bronze medalist Yoshimatsu of Mexico to take the men's missing out final earlier today. Let's take another look at that last sprint. Wallace in the front, Yoshimatsu in 2nd position. 3rd place, Dan Frost has drifted out of the picture, Thomas.
Coming into the final stretch, you can see that Sean Wallace is really digging hard. He's going as hard as he possibly can because he really wants to win this one. Looking down under his legs, right at this moment, he realizes he's got it. He throws his arm, he's got it.
Sean Wallace of the Weedy Schwinn team taking the men's missing out final ahead of Yoshimatsu of Mexico, Dan Frost of Denmark. Wonderful race and something a little different for the fans of track cycling in the Sundance Juice Sparkler Grand Prix. Don't go away, we'll be right back. Back to the Sundance Grand Prix of Cycling. Brian Drebber and U.S. Pro Champion Thomas Pren on hand here in Carson, California at the Olympic Velodrome for the women's match sprint 2nd ride. Connie Young down on the inside leads 1-0 over her opponent Renee Duprel. And if Connie Young wins this time, she takes the gold medal here today, Thomas.
Now Renee knows that if she's going to win it, she has to win it off of tactics. Connie Young is just riding a little faster than Renee is at this point. And Renee has already expressed that if she's going to win it, it has to be a tactical ride for her. So I think what you might see is as they start into the sprint, that maybe Renee wants to take the lead and try and take Connie up the track, keep her up the track, keep her out of sprinting 100%.
Now, they drew for their position in the 1st ride. They reverse on the 2nd ride, and should there be a 3rd and deciding ride, they'd have to draw again. It's a best-of-3 series, and if Connie wins it, she takes the gold medal. If Renee wins this race, they'll have to race again. Connie Young in the lead, Renee Duprel in 2nd spot right now.
I think Connie's probably going to just try and control the race from the front, just keep Renee right there in her sight.
If Renee tries to take the lead, you don't think Connie's going to relinquish?
Well, she might, but I think Connie really wants to get this over with. She wants to put her out right away.
Well, she's rolling it pretty good here right now, which tells me that she knows that she's the faster of the two and that she's going to count on her speed, although from the front she'll want to keep that sprint as short as possible.
Right. She'll want to keep it short, and she'll try and ride the tactical race, controlling it, keeping Renee up the banking.
It's tough when both riders want to do the same thing, or when you think they both want to do the same thing.
That's right. That's right, and it can end up being a very quick event, too. Because they cut very quickly to what they want to do.
Connie Young in yellow rides for the Sundance Juice Sparkler team, and Renee Duprel in pink for Weight Watchers. They head around turns 3 and 4, coming up on 1 lap to go. So we're better than halfway through this race, and the race itself hasn't really started yet.
No, it hasn't. It's about to start right now. The actual race itself, when they start sprinting, about the bell lap is when they start to wind it up. And again, Connie Young is really controlling the event.
She's riding about halfway up the track, which gives her the opportunity to throw a move up or down. Now Renee Duprel very quickly comes through on the inside. Good move by the youngster from Seattle, Washington. And now Connie Young is going to have to come from behind. She's locked into the draft. Time for the lower right. And Connie Young trying to time a move coming out of the straightaway. She's got the speed, and her move is timed perfectly. 12.53 seconds. Not a fast time once again, but first to the line. Connie Young takes the gold medal. I think we're going to have to take another look at that one, Thomas Prince. She congratulates Renee Duprel for a good ride.
Well, there's Renee. She goes up the banking and then down the banking to accelerate as fast as she can. That was a very good move for her right there. At that point, she starts to accelerate, going up the banking a little bit, and then she goes into the pole position and is committed. She has to stay there all the way through.
Here she comes now, Renee Duprel, fighting all the way to the line, and Connie Young times a move perfectly. She slingshots around just as the straightaway comes upon her, and then wins that drag race down the finish line about a half a bike length. Connie Young, 2 straight rides, wins the gold medal in the women's match sprint. We're getting ready for the men's Keirin final, an event that we like and we think you're going to like as well. And joining us up here in the booth, a man that not only coaches some of these Keirin riders, but has ridden a number of them himself. 1981, he was 6th in the world. 1982, national Keirin champion Roger Young. Roger, thanks for joining us.
All right.
This is going to be a really exciting event. Behind the motorcycle for the first 3.5 laps, and then it's off and running. The description of the race, 5 laps. They draw for their position at the start and line up on the infield of the track. And Roger, after that, what happens?
Well, I tell you what, just to give you a little bit more insight into the Keirin, this is like the big casino of cycling. They do big-time betting on it in Japan, and it begins with a draw. The draw is just as important as like a draw in poker. Everybody decides their tactics based on the hand that they draw or the position they draw on the line. And I tell you what, everybody's dealing with different sets of chips here. You got a couple big-time sprinters there in Paul Swift. You got Scott Berryman and Nelson Vales. These guys have got $100 chips to lay down for every move they make. They can't do many of them, but when they put it down, they got to put it down hard.
And our field includes Scott Berryman, a national sprint champion, Mario Pons from Ecuador, Nelson Vales, Olympic silver medal, Mark Chrysler,
not today,
and Paul Swift, Steve Stonebreaker, another big guy, Brian McDonough and Brian Moore. That's our field. They're lined up. Paul Swift is the man in the number 1 position. He'll jump out right behind the motorcycle to start with. And then you are going to get a good look, because there is our motorcycle with a camera mounted on the back, and it's going to be looking right into the eyes of the riders when they fill up that picture coming up here in just a few minutes. A wild and crazy affair, and we think you're going to enjoy it. We certainly do. There's Paul Swift at the front of the field, and the rest of the bunch lined up behind him. In second spot, it's Steve Stonebreaker from Santa Monica, California. He's a big bruiser of a fellow. Sitting in third spot on the track, Brian Moore from Colorado Springs, relative newcomer. And further on back in the line, Berryman, Vales, and the rest. It's going to be an interesting thing. As they start off, the motorcycle will come around, Roger, and then they jump in behind it and
really
they're off and running.
Keep your eyes on Stonebreaker. He's a big guy. He's a little nervous, and in the heats, he was really throwing his weight around a lot. Of course, the main guy to watch here is Nelson Vales. Nelson Vales, he's a professional. This is his bread and butter race. This is his discipline. This is where he wants to win the World Championship.
This is a very physical event. I mean, as a big guy like Stonebreaker, and of course Nelson Vales and Berryman, some of these other guys, they're not exactly pipsqueaks out there either.
I tell you what, size doesn't always play the biggest role. It's also finesse, and you're talking finesse. We're talking about guys like Brian McDonough, and actually in Scott Berryman too. You've got some good handling skills there. It depends on where there's some bumping going on. And keep in mind, this is the only cycling event that bumping and contact is actually allowed. And now when we look for bumping, watch it from the hip. Where someone hits someone else at the hip, they'll actually steer them underneath. And we have Brian McDonough. He's taking a short line.
Brian McDonough, far right on the picture.
In the yellow helmet.
Paul Swift is the one filling up the screen in the Stars and Stripes jersey. And on the outside, it's Scott Berryman, Team Michelob. Those are the three right behind the motorcycle.
And it's interesting that Swift has a long sleeve jersey on it, and it's probably, well, it's a little bit cool out here, but I'm sure some of it could even be for protection. You know, Steve Stonebreaker actually has shorts that have Kevlar side panels in them, so that if he should fall in an event like this, where it does happen. Whoa,
there you go. There's some headbutting in the middle of the field. That's Mario Pons there from Ecuador.
Now watch. Now see Berryman in the middle. Now he should be backing off and hitting at the hip. They're all hitting on the shoulders. Totally ineffective, really. You see, there's no real position change going on. It's just real dangerous. They're getting lock bars so they can go down. Now Berryman backs off. If he hits Swift now in the hip, he's going to get moved out.
The fight for position is about to be over. We're at 2 laps to go. The motorcycle swings off in the middle of the backstretch. Berryman on the right, Paul Swift on the left. Mario Pons just out of the corner of the screen, starting to make a move on the outside. They're all stacking up. The bike's off the track, and Nelson Bales rockets out of the rear position, goes straight to the front. Here they go into the turn, just a quarter lap left. Swift trying to come through on the inside.
What you're going to try to see Nelson doing is do a razor, which is just hold off, let a guy by and jump on him. Now Pons is on the lead, and he's going to be dragging Bales by. Now Bales is going to be looking for somebody coming over the top.
And Nelson Bales swings around the outside of Mario Pons. Paul Swift falls into the slipstream on the outside. It's a 2-rider race. Time running a little to the right. Doesn't matter. First one to the line wins. It's Swift. Paul Swift from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Team USA blows kisses to the crowd. A big victory for this young man.
Now that's what Kieran racing is all about. There was a lot of action at the front. A lot of people changing positions. You know, that's what it was all about, and it was a real close one right at the end. Paul Swift rode a real smart race.
One thing you always want to keep in mind with the Kieran is, unlike the match sprints, it doesn't start very slow. They wind out pretty fast behind the motorcycle, but usually the fastest guy on the track ends up winning the thing, and that's the important thing.
Nelson Bales and Paul Swift congratulating each other. We're going to go to a replay. This is where the motorcycle has just disappeared off the right side of the screen. Nelson Bales leading it with a lap and a half to go. And as you said, Roger, he's waiting for someone else to come around and then jump on that second wheel. Nelson Bales at the front.
Here's where Swift wins it, right there. He goes underneath. Let's see, I believe that's Chrysler. He goes underneath Chrysler and he takes Nelson's wheel. Now Pons is a short sprinter and he's going to die, and he's going to leave Nelson out to lead the sprint for Nelson, and Nelson's going to end up dragging. Okay, now Nelson has to go around too soon.
And here we are coming into the final sprint now. Nelson Bales forced to lead it out from the middle of the backstretch. Mario Pons in the back has died off, and now Swift, timing a perfect move, comes around the outside to win by the narrowest of margins, but with a fist in the air, he knows he's got it.
You got a show guy there. You know, he was from Kenosha, Wisconsin. He used to be a male stripper there. You know this guy's a show guy in a show event. It's perfect.
The men's match sprint final, second ride here in Carson, California on the 7-Eleven Olympic Velodrome is set to go. And on the inside, it is Kurt Harnett with his race face on. He leads 1-0 in the series, best of 3, against this man, Ken Carpenter, the United States representative in the Olympic Games. And these two met in the semifinal in Houston. They find themselves in the final. Kurt Harnett getting the better of it so far. If he wins this time, he will take gold. Thomas Pren.
Well, you talked about Kurt Harnett's race face. They were warming up before the first round of this thing, and Kurt was he was so focused on his warm-up. You know, I think he could have had an earthquake, and he just wouldn't have even known it. He was so focused on exactly what he was doing this event.
Don't say earthquake. Remember where we are.
I know.
Kurt Harnett leading down the backstretch and rolling rather briskly along on this first lap. Now, they drew their positions in the first ride. They reversed this time around, and Kurt Harnett really had an excellent ride in the first round. And, you know, in the first ride, he opened a big gap. I think took a little bit of a surprise on Ken Carpenter, about a bike length too much, really, for the big man from La Mesa, California to close.
Yeah, it was too much for Ken Carpenter to respond to and take advantage of going into that slipstream. So I think you're going to see Ken riding maybe a little bit smarter race. You know, Ken has said that he actually wants to try some different things, maybe actually ride the race from behind. But you know, the one thing he did say is, hey, listen, I'm paid to win bike races, so I can't be making mistakes, and I've got to ride the race to win it. Now, we see here they're really moving along at a pretty good clip, and what that means is really Kurt is trying to control the race.
I almost wish we could show an entire match sprint final lap in slow motion, because so many things happen at high speed, it's hard to see them all. Here, Ken Carpenter goes over the top on the outside, takes the lead away from Harnett, and they enter the backstretch now. Kurt Harnett making his dash, maybe a little too early. Matches going into the turn. He's got the long way to go, and the big man is really steaming it around the inside. Ken Carpenter, and looking good. Harnett trying to match him, can't do it. Very good tactical move there by Ken Carpenter. I think he's into the graduate course of match sprinting here. He served his apprenticeship, and he is becoming a master very quickly.
Absolutely. That was just a beautiful move the whole way.
Let's take a look at it. Here's Carpenter already in the front, and Harnett trying to match him on the outside.
He goes into the sprint, but he stays up the track. He's keeping the Canadian up the track, and that was just enough to slow him down. And so as he's coming out of this last corner, Kurt has to back off and then re-accelerate to try and get him, and he just can't do it, and he's got it.
They were going the same speed in the turn, but Harnett had the longer trip to the finish line and lost. Ken Carpenter evens the score. We're going to have to go to a third ride in the men's match sprint final. A little earlier.